And we're going. "25 participants." Okay, guys, here we go. Welcome to the first of our, hopefully, a series of panel webinars that we're going to be doing. Um, and this one in particular is about that transition moving from a builder to entrepreneurial leader. Excited to have this group with us today. For those that are coming in here now, please throw your name and where you're coming in from into chat so we can get an idea of who's here. And we'll wait for a couple of minutes for people to roll in before we get rocking here. Ian from Denver. We got Shailene from St. Petersburg. Chris from St. Louis. I love it. We got Megan in here as well. Mark Easton from Kansas. Awesome. All over the place. Boise, Michigan, the Carolinas, New Hampshire, San Antonio, Minnesota, Minneapolis, Virginia. We got Eric from Dallas. I love it, Eric. All right, Asheville, North Carolina. All over. It's amazing. It's fantastic, guys. And thanks for being here. It's going to be an amazing discussion again. I'll get these fine gentlemen introduced here. And so on my top left, I've got Eric Fortenberry with JobTread. Eric has been, quite a leader in the industry, completely transforming things in the last handful of years, making waves, massively. So great to see you guys doing what you're doing and the growth you're at. On my bottom left here, I've got Paul Sanneman with Contractor Staffing Source. Paul, I met at, I think we met at IBS here a
Think so,
handful of
yeah.
years ago was the first time we met. But I mean, again, working with a number of our client base, just has, I personally think that the best hiring system for this industry on the planet. I mean, it's just simple and it's fantastic, and so many of us are using it. It's great. And then Spencer Powell, one of the leaders in the marketing space in this world. Again, one of the fastest growing businesses. I think Spencer, you've been named that at least once or twice.
Yeah, we hit the Inc. 5000 a couple years back to back, so
Yeah,
we're
I mean, come on, that's fantastic. And I know JobTread mentioning awards. I mean, you guys are just getting littered with awards. So it's amazing to have this group here. So, guys, we're going to get into this discussion around becoming or transitioning from builder to entrepreneur. I just want to get and it's going to be discussion based, guys. Throw your Q&A if you have any questions you want in the Q&A section there. Please, we want to get to as many of those as we can before we wrap up. We'll leave some time at the end. But guys, I want your take. Maybe again, I'll start with you, Eric. Just what's your take when you think about that transition and what that means in this industry specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it means, being able to, step off the tools every day, step off wearing every single hat, trying to, sell the job, manage the job, collect the payments for the job, make the payments early on, it's very challenging to make that transition from being in the field, doing all the work to being able to step back and into the office side to focus more on building the team, making sure you've got all the right people, on the bus and the right seats, doing the right things, working together. It can be hard. I think as entrepreneurs, we all naturally want to, do everything, and we keep putting on all these hats, and we keep trying to do it at our level. We know we can do it the best, but like we struggle to be able to delegate. And so, I think being able to sort of have that, mindset that like I have to build a team of great people around me. I can't, do this all by myself. It's going to take, people that are passionate about, whatever your mission, your vision, your core values are. Like you got to assemble the right people on your team, and it could also be trade partners, but like you got to, focus more on that team building effort and you're no longer the doer of every single thing. I think that typically is one of the biggest challenges, for people is kind of being able to kind of step into that leadership role, be able to see the forest from the trees, and understand some of the larger, macro, kind of issues like, cash flow. We now need to make sure that we're getting paid and that we're paying and kind of managing, the business aspects, that is very different from just going in, stepping foot on the job, doing the work and then going home and not really having any other responsibilities. There's a lot more to it from a business owner, entrepreneur standpoint.
Yeah. And when I hear that, I hear like massive identity shift that has to happen. Spencer, can you chat about like that identity shift that's required? Because I think like that is so true that without an identity shift, because who you are is how we show up every day. We've been doing this sometimes for 10, 15, 20 years. And it's like, man, until I make that shift, but there's a total identity shift that's got to happen. So maybe we can hit on that.
Yeah, I think, in hearing Eric talk about, you go from being on the tools and getting off the tools, I think one of the hardest parts of that transition is kind of what you're saying, Randy, where you have to shift your identity, but it's this shift where you're really good and very competent at the thing, which is remodeling, building, whatever it is. And then one of the first moves you have to make is, now I actually need to hire someone that can help me on the tools. And now I have to go learn all of these skills that are not your core competency, right? And so you're like, I'm really good at this, but to scale up my business, I as an entrepreneur have to go learn new skills, management, Eric mentioned cash flow, and I have to go get new business. And it's like, well, to be able to afford this person, you need to make sure you're bringing in enough revenue and you have enough gross margin to pay them. And so I think that's the part of the identity shift is like, I am capable of learning new things and I'm always going to have to be out front learning the new skill because most likely at the beginning, you can't afford the top talent. And so you have to bring someone in and you have to train them up and then you have to go learn the new skill. Yeah, sure, at size, you can go maybe hire that person to plug in and be like, I need someone to fix this problem and I don't know how to solve it, but I'll just go buy it basically. But that usually doesn't come until later. And so I think that's the identity shift is just saying, I'm capable of figuring this out. It might be really hard. I'd rather just work on the projects because I already know how to do that. But I'm going to force myself to learn new skills.
Yeah, and what came up for me is when you were mentioning about that learning, right? As entrepreneur, truly entrepreneurial, focused mindsets is about becoming a lifelong learner, right? Like, all of us are lifelong learners. That's just, we are driven to learn, consume content and growth, right? And Paul mentioned this before we got on. It's like there's a shift that has to happen about, again, how we show up. And we didn't go to Harvard Business School, as I think, Paul, you said exactly, was we didn't go to Harvard Business School. That's not where we came from, right? Typically in this industry, we've got that skill set. We're extremely good at that. And we weren't necessarily trained to be a lifelong learner in that process. We're a lifelong learner of what we did in the field usually, but it wasn't the back end and the business side. So Paul, I know that like this one no doubt hits home for you,
Right.
but yeah, like that lifelong learning piece and
Well,
that transition.
I mean, I
said
think,
it enough.
I've been doing this for God knows 50 years, right? I've worked with 2,000 people, something like that. The hardest thing I ever did was getting people to make the transition from a craftsman to an entrepreneur. I remember one classic, I was working with a guy and I was in his living room and we were talking about marketing and cash flow and all these kind of things. And I said, John, I don't think you value what we're doing. And he goes, I took off work to do this. Right? They just don't value it. And it's really hard. I think that the most difficult thing in all my years of doing this was help people make that transition because their self-worth is based on, how good they can frame a door or whatever, right? That's who they are as a human being. And when you think about it, you need to net your self-worth based on what kind of team you can build. And there's one thing I talked to, Spencer about is most people should consider themselves a marketing company using a product or service to fund the marketing. Very few contractors even get that concept. So I think the people listen, the most difficult thing you're ever going to do as a contractor is make that shift. You've got to work harder on yourself than you do on your business. And that is something that most people, they went in, they became a good carpenter, plumber, whatever they did, they were really good at it. Their whole self-worth was based on how well they can build something. And then all of a sudden they have to change to building a team instead of building a house, or marketing as opposed to looking good to the client. So it's a huge shift. And I would say in my years of doing this, it's the most difficult thing you're ever going to do as a contractor. But if you do, and when you do pull it off, it will transform your entire life.
I think it's also about, instead of just kind of being reactive and taking, your daily, marching orders, it's about transitioning to thinking ahead, to planning for the future. I mean, you're playing chess here, right? Like, you have to be very proactive. And, like, if you don't have an annual budget, then you don't know what you have to work with. Like, if you can't, sit down and have a plan for the year and know what are our revenue goals, and divide that up monthly. Like, if you don't know what your goals are, then like you don't know how you're tracking. And so, like, being able to use data to help you plan is so important. And again, I realize, like, we aren't, most people aren't going to have a business degree and be financial, wizards here, but like, you got to start somewhere. And I have a whole financial playbook talk that we give out that you can go Google and find, but like, it's about just take that, budget template and start planning what would a successful year look like, and what do we need to do to hit our goals. And that will also help inform you, when do we need to bring on more people and build that team, so that, like, again, like, you don't want to just like burn yourself out, and you don't want to overwhelm yourself where like you can't actually, grow because you're hamstrung by your resources. But at the same time, like, you don't want to just like throw bodies at problems and just overhire. It's this delicate balance, and it's about like thinking, ahead and planning for that success. You can't just show up every day and think you're going to figure it out on the fly. Like, you have to be very strategic. And I think that's one of like kind of those big shifts from, going from just kind of doing project by project to like, now I have to build a business, and I have to plan, how many leads do I need to get in, and what rate am I going to convert those at, and what's my average job size to be able to hit my revenue goal, and how much do I need to earn per job? I mean, so many people struggle to even realize that there's two parts of this equation. You got, the income, but then you have your cost, it's like, you've got to find that right, target profit margin, gross profit margin for every job, so that then ultimately you can also cover your overhead. And at the end of the day, though, you got to be making money, and you need to put money on the bottom line for the business so that you can continue to reinvest. And so, like, you don't have to go to school to get this education, and you really don't have to be like a financial guru to figure this out. But like, at the end of the day, like, you do owe it to yourself to make sure that you have these things in place. And so if that's not your skill and you can't figure it out, then you need to bring in a partner or somebody who can help you develop that. I mean, that's, again, hiring a coach is a great example. Finding a CPA, a bookkeeper, like, you got to have your numbers dialed in, and you have to understand how the financial aspects, will dictate your success and your ability to grow versus your ability to just run this thing into the ground. I mean, if you don't understand cash flow, like, you're going to be in deep trouble.
Well, what I heard over and over is strategy, right? It's strategic thinking. Paul, were you going to jump in?
Well, the problem with these guys is, and they mostly don't have capital. They don't have like $1 million, like a private equity company, go out and let's make this all happen. So it's an organic growth. And I've heard this 100 times. Well, I can't afford the guy without the work, but I can't get the work unless I get the guy, right? So they're between this rock and a hard spot, and they don't know, well, you tell them an annual budget, they go, I have no idea how much bank I'm going to make next year, right? And so it's very difficult when you're growing a business organically, because everything costs money, right? So I've heard it a lot of times, well, I'm project manager, and I'm salesman, and I'm doing all this stuff. I say, hire a project manager. They go, well, I can't afford a project manager because I, haven't got the cash flow. But the question is the chicken or egg, what do you do first? And it's risk. Being in business is risk, right? So you may not be able to buy the new house. You got to invest in a project manager and stuff. You think in terms of what has the greatest return on investment. And the most valuable thing you've got is your time. You know, I use the example of Elon Musk. I mean, he's a smart guy, but he knows how to build teams. The same thing, anybody who's been successful knows how to build teams. And so it's a question, and maybe, you know, Eric, what do you do? What comes first, hiring the guy or getting money to hire the guy? I mean, where do you draw that line in the sand and say, okay,
Well,
I'm going to take a risk and hire somebody I can't find a forward?
Would I like to jump in on that with the time? Because I think you're 100% right. We walk through this time finder system of you have to be able to find at least, and it's always there, 20 plus hours easily of time that we are just under leveraged, right? And as soon as you get that time freed up, the moment I've asked anyone this question, if you had that time freed up and you were able to go actively lead generate, along with what Spencer does in generating marketing and actually strategically doing that well, what sort of increase in revenue do you think you could produce having that time freed up? And almost immediately, it's almost always double. Like if I'm doing 1 million now, I could do 2. If I'm doing 2, I could probably do 3 or 4. And the moment that question is there, there's your answer, Paul.
I talked to, you know, I talk a lot about people like meeting architects. I can show you as a builder, if you go out and meet architects, it pays about $5,000 an hour, give or take. I've got the numbers, I can show it works. But it's 5,000 hours in the future. It is not right now. And unfortunately, most contractors don't think as ahead. They think in the current moment. And, you know, I study a lot of time management. And most people that are successful start the year before they begin it, right? I mean, they think that far. They have a time of a year. Most contractors have a timeline of a month if you're lucky, right? They just think, how am I going to get through this month and survive?
And Spencer?
So I think this is an interesting one because I think you hit these points as you're growing, right? Where it's like, hey, I need to hire the project manager, but I feel like I don't have the cash flow. And I think you hit these kind of rock and a hard place scenarios, which is that's kind of true, right? But as the entrepreneur, it's your responsibility to figure it out. And you can either say, okay, cool, I'm actually just going to shift all of this work I was doing that's admin work to, you know, the evenings. And then I'm going to be able to take on more work during the day. And I'm going to make my work, like when I can be in someone's home, all productive. And then that's going to unlock some cash flow. You know, Eric was just saying he's working on some projects at 4:30 in the morning. That's probably because he's figured out, hey, to get to the next level, I need to carve out the time to get this done. I remember when I made my first hire, I was so busy during the day. I'm like, I've never hired anyone before. I don't know when I'm even going to train them. So I was like, I can start you part-time and I'm going to train you from 5 to 7 p.m. because like during the day, I'm like doing stuff for clients and I'm busy. And I did that for 2 weeks. And then I was like, oh, now I'm getting some time back. And then I ramped them up and then we got them to full time. And so you can do that. But then the other piece of it too is, Paul, you said risk. Like some of it is just, it's really uncomfortable, but it's believing that you will fill that time with something revenue producing. And so you're like, I'm going to take a pay cut for a short amount of time so I can bring on this person. And then now I'm really motivated to go bring in more work to pay for this person. And I now have this extra 20 hours a week because I was able to bring on this person. And it is really painful in the short term because you're like, I'm betting on myself. I'm taking less money out of the business, but it's the only way forward. And so I think a lot of times we think, oh, it's just, you just add a person when you're ready. And it usually doesn't look super fun. And so you kind of like, do I just want to like keep making what I'm making now and everything seems easy because you're unlocking a new skill that you have to learn and you're going to make less money and the result is unknown. And that's part of just entrepreneurship.
Of entrepreneurial thinking. And that's the risk. But I heard over and over is back to strategy. It's strategic thinking. And so the big shift in everything to me we've talked about so far is I have to start becoming a strategic thinker in how I move forward about the moves and what I, and how I do it, Paul.
Well, it's about fear. I mean, that with false expectations appearing real, That is the number one block of people growing. They're afraid, well, if I hire this person, I can't afford them. And what if this, and they look at all the reasons it won't work. And an entrepreneur generally looks at reasons it will work. There's, it's a different point of strategy.
Yeah.
There's always reasons why it won't work. And if you want to figure out your income, I did this one time in time management, just to look at what you do. Emptying the trash pays so much an hour, being a project manager pays, and you can divide your day. Pays the most money is creative thinking and strategy. That pays thousands of dollars an hour. But most people are too busy earning a living to make any money.
Well said.
So here, like, I think, again, going from having a job where you're working for someone else to working for yourself, like, let's not sugarcoat it. Like, you're going to work your ass off.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to be successful, you need to prepare to put in the time around the clock. It is a 24/7, like, there is, in my opinion, I guess other people may, have a different view here, but like, there is no work-life balance. I have zero work-life balance. I work and I work and I work some more. I try to, in the mornings, be able to spend a little time at breakfast and help my kids get out the door on the way to school. I try to make it home before, usually around dinner time or just after, like, where I can at least help, a couple hours, wind the kids down, get them in bed, and I go right back to work. Like, it takes a tremendous amount of effort to be successful. And again, the goal is to not have to do that always. Now, again, I don't know, we started this business in 2019, so several, 5-6 years in, like, I'm still working just as much, but I can now take time off and the business doesn't burn down. And I do have a huge staff, but like, at the end of the day, like, you are putting in the sweat equity to be able to hopefully earn much bigger, outcomes down the road. Now, in both of my companies, both software companies I've started, I didn't pay myself for the first 2-3 years. I literally did not take a paycheck. I was, fortunate to be able to afford to do that, and it was in the very first company. I literally, like, we bootstrapped my first company out of a 5-bedroom house. So I ate, slept, breathed, like, all day, every day. Like, that is just how I did it, and again, I had a very successful exit. The second one, luckily we had a little bit, more capital that we put in, but again, still self-funded. Friends and family took a little bit, put in a little bit of capital, unlike the first one. I borrowed a $40,000 credit card from my dad. But at the end of the day, like, you're going to take a massive pay cut in the beginning. That's all there is to it. And I would say, like, every single person that has joined me early on, they also took a huge pay cut. You need to negotiate your compensation with your early people. That's why, like, if you can find a partner, somebody who is also willing to work for very little early on with the potential upside, like, that's great. You just doubled your horsepower and your sweat equity without having to fork out too much cash. Now, when you think about some of your first employees, like, the more that you can shift the fixed, salary, the fixed cost per month to, incentive-based compensation, like, you can, again, like, I've never done this, but, a lot of people, you can hire salespeople. It's totally eat what you kill. You get a much bigger commission, and you don't have to have that guaranteed payment. That's a lot, harder to do sometimes, especially, it's, if they got a family and they need to be able to make something. But, like, same thing with project managers. Give them a smaller base up front with a larger commission, where, based on gross profit, how well we perform, you make more money. So help us perform. Salesperson, help us sell, help us earn. And that's how you can sort of start off with a much smaller nut that makes it easier for you to grow. And at the end of the day, like, I would encourage everyone to start small and start simple. You've got to focus on just winning that first job, and then the next job, and then the next job. Like, find ways that you can go and you can, network. Look for referrals, asking your friends, your family, your neighbors, go find, if you're a remodeler, go find architects, go find realtors, find ways that you can hopefully get those first couple deals. Like, your first customers are your absolute hardest. Those first deals, they are the hardest. Once you get them in the door, and again, whatever it may be, just start getting some progress, start getting momentum, build on that. Eventually your goal should be able to spend, 3 to 7% of your sales on marketing, but, like, you got to get the sales to be able to spend it on marketing.
Yeah. So I'm going to disagree with you. This is the Cisco Lieber thing. I'm going to say, I think, because I built several businesses and I was able to do it without working a zillion hours a week. So now some of the reasons people be listening to this, some people are going to buy, Eric, that's a great idea. And some are going to, I'm not going to give up my family for my business. And I'm going to take the other point. I've been able to build a very successful business on way less than that. But it has to do with attracting the right people. And I know we recruit Eric's people. And the thing is, Eric is a great company to work for. So it's really easy to find people that want to come to work for Eric. Because they go, man, that's an awesome company to work for that guy.
But hold on though, this for a second, right? So when I hear that though, and Eric, I've been there, I know Eric, it's fantastic, amazing, it's like awesome place to work, no doubt about it. But this is what we need to be building as entrepreneurs though, right? We need to be building, like I always say, we don't want to have to go and find always, we want to be able to attract. And part of building a business entrepreneurially thinking is being able to attract the right people. So we want to be setting up our business to do that. Now, I know that, yes, we're going to need to find, but we damn well better be finding someone that's actually going to be we need to be attractive to them. What Eric has built, right?
I can help that because, we've hired like 5,000 people, right? And so what attracts people? And it isn't money. And money is not the number one deal. It's, I want to be respected. I want to be trusted. It's not those kind of things. So, we can get people to go work for Eric for less money than we're making because it's a different environment.
Yeah.
So, if I look at even like Elon Musk, people maybe hate him or love him, but he gets people to fall in love with him and dedicate their life to him, right? So whatever it takes to build that kind of environment where people want to work for you, and they're willing to quit their job, maybe take less money, but go, I really like working for these guys because there's a great place. They respect me. They treat me well. They give me a shot at what I want to do. And they don't micromanage me. Right. So to me, as a recruiting company, your ability to attract people is going to be key in building your team. And that means you got to be a great place to work. Our company had 40 people, nobody's ever left. It's a great place. I love being here. So it's the same kind. You can do that with your company.
And that's what you have to do. Spencer, are you going to?
Yeah, I think you make that shift, but early on, I think it's a lot about just selling the vision, of what you're trying to build. Because to attract, you kind of need some proof behind you. And so like, talking about JobTread, you guys are saying, hey, it's easier to hire, but like, that's because he's got some proof stacked up behind him in like, this is what we've built and this is where we're going. But at the beginning, all you have is this is where we're going. And so you kind of, I think you need to sell on the vision with your early staff and employees. And then eventually you can stack some proof and then you actually get to that spot where you can attract and you command a little more leverage.
I think even selling vision though, if done right, is attractive.
Well, it is. It's kind of, I've got guys that only have 3 employees and they want to build a company, but they're a great human being. They trust them. They treat them nicely. You're right. The vision, if you don't have the company, you at least have to have the vision. So your best sale, the most important sale you're ever going to make is to a potential employee. It's way more important than a job you're ever going to sell.
And so I think that's, again, I'll go back to this whole piece of builder to entrepreneur, right? If I'm an entrepreneur, I'm thinking about vision. I'm strategically thinking. Strategic thinking is coming up over and over and over. And it's just what has to be there. But I think has to be understood that this is strategic thinking. This is no longer just what I do in the field. The other thing I want to shift to as we get in kind of the second half here is also let's be talking to the builder that's been around for quite some time, has a nice business, as not just a startup either, because there's no doubt there's a number on here that are at this point. It's like, hey, I've been doing this a long time. I've got 15 people. I've got a good business. I'm doing several million, and I'm not a startup. My money is good. I've got things dialed in, but I still can't shift from builder mindset, right? Like there is a shift that still needs to happen. So I want to talk about trusting and letting go. Like the letting go piece is critical, and it doesn't have to be letting go of the tools, but letting go of day to day of the job.
Can I tell you, Joe?
Management.
I have a great letting go joke. This is my letting go joke. Oh, can I tell that?
Sure.
So Lenny's walking along the edge of a cliff, right? It's black, he can't see what's going. He falls off the cliff and he's holding on to this branch. And he thinks he's going to die. All right. So he never had a spiritual day in his life, but he starts praying. And he goes, If there's God out there, anybody, just get me out of here. I'll do anything. And then he starts saying all the things he knows he should. I'll be kind. I'll help. He lists all the things he knows he should have done but didn't. Just get me out of here, right? And so finally, this big booming voice comes at Lenny. This is the Lord. Are you serious? Will you do anything I ask? He says, absolutely anything. Just get me out of here. And he says, Lenny, let go. He goes, is there anybody else I can talk to? It's the hardest thing to do. And then he wakes up and he's like 5 feet off the ground. But that's the hardest part, trust.
Yeah. And so what do you guys, Spencer, trust? You know, you've built a team, you've got a good sized team, good operation, good at this point. What did you, or what do you know, probably better that we go to the builder side. What have you seen in your builders where they struggle with this, you know, trusting, letting go, and what do you see that's required?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we had a question that's kind of related to this.
Yes. Yeah.
Sitting in there, but it's kind of that fear of nobody else can do it as good as I can. I think that mentality, and at least what I've learned about my journey and what I've seen in others when they get stuck is, if you can't pass it off, it means you either haven't found the right person or you don't have everything documented the way that you want. And sometimes we think we have it documented, and so you like write down, okay, this is how we do this part of the process. I'm trying to pass this off. And then you pass it off, and then they do the thing, and you're like, we didn't get there. There's usually a missing step or two. And so it's just a repeated process of, I need help with this thing. Watch me do this thing. Cool. Now I'm going to watch you do the thing and give you feedback. And then now I'm going to let you run and you're going to go do that thing. And so it sounds simple, but it's a pain. And if you don't like managing people and processes, you like really have to force yourself to continue to check in and, you know, review that process, review calls, see how it's going. Are we getting the outcome? Provide the coaching and feedback, and like, now you're into management. And so you will feel better about letting go if you take the time up front to properly hand over the task, which is showing, letting them do it and giving them feedback, and then releasing, and then you have some checks and balances, which is like,
this
cool.
is where
I have a shortcut to that.
And I'm good.
This is where we talk about, you know, well, three things. I'll give you the two. Is one, profit before growth. You know, Eric started talking about numbers right off the bat, right? Got to get the money right. So it's profit before growth, and then systems before people, right? So if we fire people at our problem, it's not going to get solved, and we're gonna burn the bridge of trust, right? The moment we, you know, have somebody jump into something and it falls apart and doesn't work, and, you know, then we run into problems. And again, this, Aaron, will get to your question here, but, you know, we run into this issue of now I can't trust somebody because I tried to do that, it didn't work, but we didn't have ourselves in place. The systems weren't in place prior to getting somebody in place. Now, when you get the right people, we also can do that simultaneously, but we better make sure that that's in place, because more people will create chaos, frustration, and overwhelm if you don't get done what Spencer just talked about.
This is the most important part of this whole meeting. Now what you can do, which is awesome, is you've got great software people you can hire just by hiring the damn software. How many years have you spent figuring the software out, Eric? You're brilliant. So you don't have to be brilliant at software. You use, you know, Eric, he's already done that. Marketing, you don't have to hire a $100,000 a year marketing guy. You can use Spencer because he's really good at marketing. I've recruited 5,000 people. I can find you great people. And Randy, you've built businesses. You know the mistakes people are going to make. So the good news is you can build a team without paying retail. You know what I mean? I can do the recruiting. And this is a sample of that team. It isn't, you can hire everybody on this team for the cost of one project manager, right? And so to me, that's where today's contractors really have an advantage, because they can outsource, like you being the services, and get the best in the industry for not paying a fortune.
But you have to have a shift in mindset to want to actually go out and do that, and then feel confident and comfortable with doing it, Right.
Well, the
So,
first person you're going to have to sell is yourself, right? If you don't believe this, you're done. But if you believe it, you'll spend the money on coaching, on marketing, on recruiting, on, software to do it right. But in today's market, it's way less expensive than it ever used to be.
Yeah, so I totally agree with all that. Again, there's no reason to try to hire all of these functions and roles in-house. You're going to spend a lot more, and you're only going to get a mediocre person versus, finding partners like the people here on this call. But like, to go back directly to Randy's question, like for the larger builders out there, I mean, I think it's very important that you find ways to focus on, your culture, building team with your people. You have to be able to keep everybody on the same page. Like, as much as, most people probably hate meetings, and I'm one of them, but like at the end of the day, like you need to have regular times to get everybody together. At the construction company, the first Wednesday of every single month, we had an all hands on deck that included all of our employees as well as our trade partners. And we spent, a couple hour meeting, but we spent the first part going through team updates, sharing what we're working on, the big wins, the challenges, things like that. The second half of the meeting, we went over, some sort of, professional development, training, safety, whatever it may be. Sometimes had our suppliers, partners come in that would do something. But, like it's so important that you take the time to get everybody together and to share, to have open and honest communication. I think at the end of the day, like that is going to build you so much more trust, and it's going to help people also understand the why, understand what's happening, take more accountability. At the end of the day, like you want them to feel like they're owners, and they take ownership over their, role, responsibility, whatever it may be. And I would encourage everyone to just be as transparent as you possibly can in everything. Like figure out what are your KPIs? What are the key things that are going to drive your business forward, and publish them. Put them on dashboards. If you come to our office, we have dashboards all over the walls. Every single possible team and thing that we know that we need to drive more of, we have, gamified it. We have, made it very, very transparent for everybody to see how are we performing. And, I would encourage you all to think about, what are those things? And then how do we get everybody aligned and even compensated to go and achieve those goals? That will propel your business forward. That will help you to keep a handle on what you're doing well and where you're slipping and what you need to focus on to improve. At the end of the day, though, it's all about making sure that everybody is focused on the right things so that as a whole, you are moving in the right direction. And anytime you start to slip or get off course or veer or whatever, like anyone and everyone should be able to see that and figure out, hey, here's what we could do to change that or to fix that, or like, because you don't have to solve every problem. You don't even have to come up with every idea. Like, may the best idea always win. And the more that you can bring your team together is going to help those things come up. And then for you to come up with the right solutions that you can implement and take action on.
And I agree. We have a team meeting every week. I share literally all the numbers with everybody because we're all on the same team. And everybody knows where we are, what we're doing, what we've accomplished, and there's nothing hidden. And we do it on Zoom because we're not all in the same place. But we do that every week. And I think that culture's key. And you can't build a culture without trust. And you can't build trust unless you're transparent. You cannot get away from this. You can't be secretive. It's not going to work.
Yeah, we do every Wednesday we have a catered team lunch. So we bring in lunch. We also give people lunch now on Mondays, but we don't have like a team meeting. But like we spend an hour and a half every Wednesday where we go through every single department, what everyone's working on. Like it just like the act of bringing people together and sharing and being transparent, it really helps build appreciation for everyone else, so that they're not like just thinking, oh, they got it so much better over there. Like, it's like they actually hear the challenges and they have that appreciation. The other thing that I think it gives you the opportunity to do is to show appreciation.
Right.
I think this is one of the most important things that, beyond the money, like people need to know that you value them, you care about them, you see them, you recognize them. So we have a Who's Kicking Ass box. And throughout the week, anyone can submit anonymous little notes of, whoever they saw on the team do something awesome. The very first thing I do at every team lunch is I read those out and I acknowledge those people. Now, the first one we pull, we give like a $15 Starbucks gift card, but like it's such a simple act that like goes so far, because now, you know, all of those awesome things that happen that like, there's no way that I could have seen them, or any, like everyone, like there's no way the whole team would have seen those things happen. We have now surfaced them, and we've brought recognition to those people, and that drives them and motivates them to want to keep going above and beyond and to keep doing those things. So I think for those larger builders out there, like you got to come up with those creative ways to recognize your people. You know, maybe it's, you know, again, every season, you know, if you're working outside, like getting them, you know, a new pair of work gloves or boots, or, you know, some new gear to like show that you care, that they are going to be comfortable, that you care about them, like being thoughtful. Like this is a nominal cost that really won't even move the needle whatsoever, but like going out of your way to do those things. That's how you keep the people on your team incentivized and motivated.
And
That's because you have a team. I mean, it is a team, and the team is all working on the same thing. And what I've noticed in some older companies is they sort of lose the team. Everybody sort of does their own thing. They do, and you know, they see the owner once in a while, and they lose the fact that they're a team headed in one direction. And I think Eric is absolutely right on. You've got to appreciate people. You got to show them that you care. That's way more important than money. And you got to build that team together so everybody's working toward a common goal. And I think you got to do it once a week. I don't think you can like do it once a month. That doesn't work.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you guys describe that. I mean, we at Builder Funnel, we think kind of like the culture all stems from the core values. We've got like a little, you know, everyone's got their core value cards, but very similar to what Eric and his company do. Every Friday, we do core value shout outs where instead of doing the kick and ass box, we basically just do that live, you know, with the team, and people can shout out, hey, this week I saw someone exercising this core value, shouting them out for that. And and it's amazing how far that does go. And I think because like if you hire around your core values, you fire around your core values, you live them out, you actually, they're not just like posted on the wall and everything. And then you're reminding people like this is what we want to do here is live these out, then people want to live those out and they want to be appreciated for those things.
And your team will do. I mean, one half of my team, they do a newsletter. I have nothing to do with it. They do everything. And one of the things they said that was, I mean, it talks about what you do every week. And she put in, these people found their dream jobs this week. I never would have thought of that. Like, that's a great statement, right? But it's those kind of things.
Yeah, it's living those core values. And I think like, again, you know, we're industry leaders here, right? The four of us in what we do and how we do it. And every single one of us is doing the exact same thing. We didn't know we each did it, but we have the same thing in our team meetings about mission and core values, and giving that shout out, acknowledging when you see others living and breathing. We call it living and breathing our mission and core values. The same thing. So guys, this is a trend and it works when you do it well. I want to get into sort of our, I'm going to ask really about this one thing of personal reflection, right? If you're looking on your own journey, what was that mindset shift that changed everything for you, Spencer?
That changed everything.
It's a big question.
Yeah, I think I've gone through multiple of those
Iterations, sure.
Yeah, as you go through. So like I guess thinking back to the early days, like I think what I would have gone back and told myself is like you're capable of more, and it's, you know, you hit a problem. I remember, you know, I'd hit some problem, and you know, my dad and I would be talking about it. He was in business for himself too, and we, you know, talk through it, and then you know, okay, this is what I'm going to do for this problem, and you get through it. And then all of a sudden, like the next time that same problem hits, it doesn't feel like a 10 anymore. It feels like a 7. And then you just like deal with something similar. Now it feels like a 1. And like probably today, I don't even blink at that same problem. But there are new problems that feel like a 10 and an 8. And I think if once you have a little bit of that context or perspective, I think you can get better at just saying, this is a big problem. There is a solution for it. I can figure out a pathway forward. And just kind of looking at it from that way versus like, oh my God, like we're toast. Like I feel like in the early days, I would get stuck in that, just like, how am I going to get past this? Versus now it's a little more like, this really sucks. Okay, let's figure out how we can get past it.
And so you're moving just way faster, right? Like you're not being stuck in it for long. I love that, man. Eric, sort of, it's the same thing. Just, what's that biggest mindset shift that changed, I say everything.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just realizing that like I don't have to be involved in every single thing, every decision, every, challenge. Like I don't have to solve every problem. I've built a great team of people around me and I can trust them. I know that they can make good decisions. And if there's something that again that they still need help with, like they can bring it to me, but the whole, just being able to let go so that I can go and spend my time focused on the things that I think are the highest priority, the things that, nobody else is able to do and focus on, and just trust the people around me. I mean, I think that's been huge. And also just understanding, like, I think it's like, perfection is like the enemy of progress. Like it's important to move forward and make decisions. Like if you sit there and you allow this fear of making a mistake cause like just paralysis, like it's going to be so hard for you. Like you have to be able to take in all the facts, everything around you, and make the best decision that you possibly can, and nothing can't be changed later. Like you got to keep progressing forward. Take the time later to reflect on how did that work? Is there something I could have done differently? Like you can always improve over time, but like you've got to take action. And I think it's so important that people, focus on just the blocking and tackling, getting things done, make a to-do list, prioritize it, and start at the top and just start checking things off. Like you can't like let things overwhelm you to the point where like you're not able to operate. And I think a lot of people, get very overwhelmed. They have a lot of anxiety about things, and like that just does not help. It just gets in the way. You got to be able to compartmentalize that stuff away, make a list, do one thing at a time, and just knock it off. And at the end of the day, just be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I did my absolute best today. I'm going to go get a little bit of sleep, and I'm going to wake up and I'm
Back
going to
at
do it
it.
over tomorrow. Tomorrow's a new day. Like, you got to know that every day you left it out there on the field and you did your best, and that's all you can ask for.
And what you said is very similar to Spencer, which is beautiful. It's action and it's quick, and I got to move forward no matter what in the face of this big challenge. Paul, biggest
Well,
one for you.
well, I would say the most one person pertinent thing I was a long time ago is you need to work harder on yourself than you do on your business.
Mm.
And I remember when I started listening, I have probably every rah-rah tape you could think of, right? I mean, and when I used to drive around, I used to spend 2 to 3 hours in the day commuting. I would always listen to rah-rah tapes. So I've spent most of my life absorbing information, whether it's metaphysics
Sure.
or business or whatever. So I probably spend 2, 3 hours a day, easy, every day doing whether working on me versus working on the business. I think that's a big shift you need to make, is because your business can be no better than you. So you work on you more than it's a priority. Take the time, whether it's exercise or meditation or studying, whatever it is, take time to work on yourself. I used to listen to Jim Rohn, he's passed, but he was one of my idols. And I've listened to a lot of his tapes. Today, it's never been easier to get brilliant information from brilliant people for free. You just have to create the time to do it. And the other thing was big was I used to work by myself. I was a sole consultant for years. And I started this company, realized I could build a team, and it's all about the team. And I love having recruiting companies to recruit great people, right? So it's awesome. But building a team has actually been more fun than coaching was. It's like, oh my God, this is great fun. So building a team is that was a big shift for me. Oh my God, I could spend building a team and they can do all these amazing things. And then I showed what I mean. There's 40 people there and we just have a great time. So that was a big shift for me.
And I would say for me, the realization that if I stayed doing what I was doing, I was always going to hit a ceiling. There was always going to be a cap. I was never going to get beyond, that number, whatever that number is. And many of you have likely hit that ceiling. You may bust through it and you got to another ceiling, but until you have that ultimate shift to becoming the entrepreneur that we've all talked about today and make that transition, that ceiling is always there. And, we say all the time in 4-level, right? If you don't make the transition, you will likely always make a living, but you'll never make a fortune. right? And a fortune can be had. We say this all the time. You have winning lottery tickets in your pocket. Every builder remodeler on the planet has a winning lottery ticket in their pocket. There is so much opportunity if you get it dialed in. You do the right things right and actually figure out how to connect these dots as to what we talked about today. And hopefully you guys are taking some notes around some of this stuff. I do want to wrap up in our last 10 minutes here of some Q&A, and I know Aaron had hit this question some time back or very early on. So if you have any other questions, throw them into the Q&A. Let's make sure we cover these off. Aaron says, I'm pretty ready to scale up from a two-man crew, including myself, but I don't know how to find the right people, Paul. Quality standards are low. Quality standards are low, and it seems like everyone who has the right mindset is already running their own company. And that, again, can be a misconception. Talked about misconceptions in the past. I'm not willing to waste time and risk my reputation on warm bodies. Where do I find rock stars? Right?
What can I say?
Yeah,
I do that all
Paul,
the time, right?
Paul, how about I say it for you, Paul?
Okay.
So look, here's the answer. You know, you have to first of all know exactly what roles are you looking to fill. Maybe not even today, but at some point, like define the roles and responsibilities. Be very, very clear about what you're looking for. And then you need to have a website, a careers page, publish those job descriptions, put them up so that they're always out there so that if someone finds it, they come about. Now, someone like Paul can be extremely helpful because they'll take that and they'll get that posted on all the major job boards out there. Now, the key here is that as soon as someone applies, his team instantly replies to them and has a conversation and makes sure that they are actually qualified to be an applicant for your company. Because like the problem is there are so many people who are looking for jobs, but so many of them aren't qualified. And that will, if you try to weed that out and get down to the actual qualified people, that could spend hours and hours and hours. Like literally, like you could spend all day just focusing on that, trying to find the diamond in the rough. And
that's why people don't. That's why people don't take action to find people because it's so damn hard, right?
Yeah,
so then it's like, forget that. I'm not, anyway, yeah.
There are a million fish in the sea. Like you've got to have your lines out there and you have to have the ability to be able to, figure out which ones are the ones worth pursuing. And the thing that I love too, that Paul, what they do is they actually will send a personality assessment to every single person. And that is very tailored to the role, the position that they're applying for. It is another great indicator of, is this person actually going to be a good fit for your team? It has been so helpful to have Paul, again, going through, we probably have thousands of people that apply and we don't have to actually talk to nearly, it's a very small percentage of the people we actually talk to, and then an even smaller percentage of the people we move forward with. But that's the key, is you got to get that net out there, cast it as wide as you can, but be able to have those good ways to filter down to find the right people.
And I would say too, I think it's critical that I think we're looking for these rock stars out of a box, but it's up to us to also have a business that we can teach and train our systems into and be prepared to be able to do that, because rock stars want to see that. Right? Rock stars want to know that exists, right? So that's important. Rock stars are hard to attract if we aren't attractive to rock stars.
Right. And I can clearly say that there's tons of talent out there. There's no shortage of talent. But we went through whatever, on the average, we have to go through 20,000 people to find.
So just so I can get a couple more questions, that's awesome. Guys, Paul's got the system. If you're looking for talent, it's there. I wanted to touch on this one. Spencer was, what marketing moves give the fastest return for builders who've relied mostly on word of mouth? And so many rely on word of mouth. Like, what's that? Then you did a session with us. I guess it's a while back now, but on some quick wins, right?
Yeah. I just want to spotlight the distinction between fastest return and maybe best return or long-term strategy.
Yeah, great.
Oftentimes, if you've never done marketing before, you're like, oh, I'm going to invest in marketing. I want to get that back as fast as possible. And if you think about the process of putting a system in place, generating a lead, qualifying a lead, pulling them into your sales process, going through design, getting like we might be 6 months, 9 months, 12 months in before you actually sign that person into construction. And that could be a lead that just like generates tomorrow. So I would encourage you to just immediately zoom out and go, I'm trying to build a sustainable, repeatable system that I can lean on. Now, having said that, everyone wants the quick wins. I would
Yeah,
say like
yeah.
there are very few, but one of the best possible quick wins is any existing customer list or past leads list than you have. And so if you have been in business for a while and you get a lot of word of mouth, like you probably have a lot of happy customers, reaching out to all of them saying, hey, we've helped a lot of companies this year. We're looking to grow. We want to help more, we want to help more people, fix up their home, build new homes. We have 4 spots open in design right now. Do you know of anyone we should talk to? And then you
Right.
send that to your entire database of past customers. They might be thinking, or they might know someone. That is your warmest audience. It's people that already know about you, and it's your fastest path to probably sales opportunities. Other than that, I would say like probably the ads route online instead of so either like Google ads or Meta ads because you can start putting dollars in and driving traffic immediately. But that's still not going to be as fast as email, and that's email is going to be free or cheap. And honestly, if the list is not that big, you should just personally email everyone. You should call them up and have a
Right.
conversation. Like, don't try to just like send one email out to 50 people. Like, just call them all, have a
Well,
conversation.
appreciation works for clients as well as employees, right, Eric?
Yeah, and I think another important one is, we talk a lot about, and we're very, very focused on this, is active lead generation, which is getting ourselves with what we refer to as growth partners or what we call one-to-manys. You need these one-to-many opportunities, that one relationships that create many opportunities. The architects, the realtors, the mortgage brokers, bankers. I mean, there is a lot of one-to-many opportunities that create, very quick. But it's not, you can't just go after that one time and oh, I didn't get anything from it. We got to build real relationships, right? So
It takes a year.
it's so important, right? And so that's the thing, the fastest return. Yeah, good point. I think Megan had a question in here some time ago as well around culture. What's that one culture practice you've seen that really retains top talent in the industry? I
I'm
think
going to
that
go with
was directed.
appreciation of the current people that work for you and showing it in a way that's visible to everybody else.
Yep.
Anybody else want to touch on it, Eric?
I mean, I would say, look for just opportunities to celebrate your wins. Like, you hit your monthly goal, have a celebration. And, it could be as bring in breakfast tacos or do a happy hour. If you close out a project, celebrate it. You get a 5-star review, celebrate it. Just like look for ways to celebrate. People want to be on the winning team. They want to feel like they're winning. That shows progress. That's like it's just an exciting time. And so the more exciting times you can have, the better. And you got to look for not just the big wins, look for the small wins and celebrate those. And then I'd also encourage you to find ways and opportunities like, again, end of the year parties, holiday parties, like volunteer events, like find team building opportunities. And I would encourage you to also try to involve the extended families of all of your employees. If you can win them over, then the next time that you need that person, to take a call or run to the job site on a night or a weekend or something, if they have support at home and the home appreciates and knows that you value that they're people, they're much more likely to be able to go do that, and it's a lot easier. So, again, just find ways to build the team and the
Right.
extended team so that they all feel like they're part of your business, your company, your culture. Like get that buy-in, and it's so much easier for people,
Well,
and they're going to
and
stay.
people want to be on a winning team. They just don't want a job.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
Hey guys, we're getting into wrap up here, and I wanted to thank each and every one of you guys, Eric, Spencer, Paul, and everyone that took time out of their day. And honestly, let's face it, taking time out of your day to do this is an entrepreneurial move and not a builder move.
Absolutely.
right? Like, I just kind of thought about that, but it's true. I mean, strategic thinking, right? There's a number of takeaways here. What I'd encourage each and every one of you guys to be doing is, what are the biggest takeaways that you left with? What do we do with that, right? Success does not happen by chance. It happens because we took action. We talked earlier, Spencer and Eric both talked about, action and moving forward faster. If we went back in time and said, what's the biggest things that changed for me? I would talk to, Spencer said it perfectly. If I could go and have a conversation with myself, it would be, I would move the needle faster and I would be able to move forward quicker in that process. That perfection is killer. Let's not get in that. Let's move faster with the 80. We talk about 80% approach. We've got it 80% right. I often say if it's 50% right, and then I go, oh, what about 20? Just move, because moving is going to make a difference. I'm just saying move, get this done, right? I think it's extremely important. Guys, if you need anything from Spencer on the marketing side, Eric on the software side, if you haven't ever checked out JobTread, guys, you're making a mistake. Make sure that you do. And again, Paul, I mean, we talked a lot about teams today and building teams and how important that is, extremely important. And then from the 4-level coach side, from 4-level, we've got a number of books, a book series. Our 10 reasons builders, remodelers fail to grow, guys, is all to do with what we talked about. It's if we don't get those 10 things right, pretty much every one of them came up in our conversations. Guys, go get the book on Amazon, or just reach out to any one of us. We'll make sure we look after you.
Right, and if you go to our website, just make an appointment with me. I'd be happy to talk to any of you about how I can help or how you can do it better. Right, we're all pretty available, which is amazing, right? I mean, it's not like we're up on some. They can find us. They know our number, where we live.
So yeah, reach out to each and every one of us. We are here to help. I can't wait to do this again, guys. We're going to do this again, hopefully.
Yes.
There's we'll have some different topics and different paths to go down. There's a lot to cover in this world, gentlemen. Thank you all. Thanks.
I appreciate you having us.
We'll
Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks a lot.
Everybody.
Cheers.
Guys, bye.